Out in the forest the orange tree grows, way in the back nobody knows. The fruit it grows is magical indeed. Just one bite will put you to sleep. Welcome back. This is an Orange Tree video production called Bedtime Stories with Jared. Here you will hear stories read in a whisper to induce relaxation, sleep, and ASMR tingles. Please make sure that your headphones are plugged in and over each ear before you begin. Let's get started. Chapter 20. A Well-Balanced Life. Today started on the wrong foot, and Norman had no idea how that would change the outcome of events. He got an early start in the gym, and he had spent some time with Eugenia. After that, he was ready to reclaim his day and get back on track. Norman starts with a healthy breakfast. He asks the staff of the hotel if they can help him prepare the special breakfast. He asks if they make him a nice little salad with 2 poached eggs resting on top. Norman tips the staff well for this. Norman finishes his eggs quickly, and he relocates from the dining hall to his hotel room. Norman must first begin his meditations. He makes his bed so that his room is tidy. Having a tidy room is essential for a clean and clear mind. Norman climbs onto the bed and sits Indian style. He crosses his legs and reaches for his phone. Norman hides from the world under the noise-canceling headphones. He plays sweet melodies of flutes, harps, ocean waves, and woodland soundscapes. Music that has no clear and discernible voice. It is the best kind of music to help him lose focus on any one idea and to achieve a sense of peaceful emptiness and self-awareness. Norman closes his eyes, and he drifts into a space of relaxation and inner power. It is from this place that he centers his life and finds a moral balance that helps him deliver consistent results day after day. While his eyes are closed, Norman gives way to images that push into his empty space. He pictures a house high in the hills overlooking the ocean. A large green lawn stretches forward to the cliff's edge, where a person can stand and view the ocean waves crashing into the rocks below. He pictures himself standing at a grill and wearing a striped blue and white apron. Eugenia kisses him on the cheek and turns to talk to friends that they have invited over for a casual Sunday afternoon. A child runs through the yard with a red kite flying high in the clouds. Norman focuses on the sounds of the birds chirping and the feel of the breeze against his cheeks. His phone vibrates gently, and Norman wakes from his dream state. The sound of the ocean and the birds are no longer surrounding him. They're coming through his headphones only. He opens his eyes in time for his first scheduled appointment of the day. His phone alerts him to the time, and he calls his Vital 7 life coach. The bi-weekly meeting with the life coach is very important in maintaining Norman's success. Norman attributes all of his success in life and finances to his Vital 7 coach. His coach aided him in finding his new vocation as a public speaker. The coach helped him dig deeply into his life experiences to find the stories that other people would want to pay to hear. The coach helps Norman put life into perspective and to consider and evaluate the events of his life with new perspectives. The Vital 7 method gives Norman a way to score his life in 7 categories. The categories are named mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, social, sexual, and financial. Norman's goal is to score a perfect 10 in all 7 categories every day. But for the last 2 months, Norman has struggled with both the sexual and emotional scores. He marks himself between 3 and 5 points regularly in these 2 categories. Today, it is the first time that Norman is willing to score himself above a 6 in either of those categories, and Norman is especially excited to tell his coach. Norman's coach is excited for him, and Norman can feel a charge of additional energy. He was already excited for himself, but knowing that his coach thinks that he is doing a good job causes Norman an extra special joy. Norman packages his excitement, he bottles it up like an elixir, and he redirects his energy into his work. He will use this excitement to make larger strides today. He sets his briefcase on the hotel desk and spreads out his papers. He starts working on a new speech. He has learned from watching others that a good speaker is always working on bringing something fresh and new to the audience. The same speeches will sell time and time again, but the speaker needs to have additional products to sell when the main product sales decline. Norman then outlines the makings of a special book that he can offer when the new speech is ready. He sets pricing for the book and schedules time to write on his various layovers between cities in Chicago, Phoenix, San Francisco, and Charlotte. Norman should be able to write his first draft of this new book within the week. It'll take 2 weeks to edit it. He will outsource the cover design and self-publish to avoid the tedious process of finding a publisher that likes his work. When the next alarm on his phone sounds, Norman knows that it is time to give his next speech. Norman always schedules at least 3 staged events in a weekend. Each one addresses a different aspect of success and how to achieve it. This allows Norman to reach the widest audience with his message. If you don't buy his book at the speech number 1, he is sure to have something for you in speech number 2 or 3. His first speech of the weekend is always directed to the people who have spent their entire savings on the programs that promise to make you a rich and successful person, and who have not found success. His second speech, which he delivered last night before the cocktail hour, was about wealth management and finding credit when every bank tells you no. These 2 speeches are a powerful 1-2 punch, and they play well into each other. He tells the people at the first speech who cannot afford his programs to come back later in the day for something special. Then he shows them how to find money that they're lacking, so they can afford anything that they need to afford on their journey to success. The second day of speaking is about how spirituality affects success. He targets the very large population of people who no longer take time to attend church because they are too busy trying to get ahead to take time for religion. He tells stories about how all great leaders have some sort of spirituality that keep them balanced. Every audience includes some non-believers too. For the true atheist in the audience, he sells them on the placebo effect. He sells them on the placebo effect and the power that comes from faith. Norman points out that faith is just another word for belief. We all know that the patient who believes in the magic of a water pill can show miraculous improvements in health. In some cases, the strong believers can even cure cancer on the false belief that they are receiving real medicine. In this way, faith has the same power on success. It does not matter if God is real. What matters is that we believe that he is real. Norman is very good at this speech, and within 30 minutes of his speech, Google Insights always shows a spike in the number of searches for churches near me. Norman has probably converted more atheists to God than all the preachers in the state of Delaware. Since this is the last speech of the weekend, excuse me, Norman likes to give the audience something to ponder in the days and weeks ahead, and he tells the audiences about all the mysterious moments that have been attributed to faith and the belief in a higher power. Of course, if you wanted to know more, or if you wanted to recall some of the fantastic stories later, there's a book available in the back of the hall. Norman wrote this book just for this audience, and inside it is a collection of wonderful stories of pain turned into joy and suffering turned into happiness. All of it is attributed to the power of faith. His book sales are always strong. The last speech about miracles usually falls around the dinner hour, and Norman would experience a miracle of his own on this night. Norman's speech would be interrupted by a raving lunatic. This happens sometimes. Sometimes a person decides to take their anger out on the first person that they see. Sometimes the person on the stage is an easy target. He never knows why the interruptions happen, but they always end the same way: a distracted audience and poor book sales. This is how the events of the interruption usually occur. The interrupting person screams, yells, curses, and shouts. The person points his or her fingers towards the stage, as if the finger were a lance with a piercing tip. When the person gets about halfway down the aisle, the security team finally catches them. One guard arrives first, then a second guard arrives shortly behind the first. A third usually stands by. Just in case, at the top of the aisle, a fourth guard blocks the head of the aisle in case a person should break free and start running again. Tonight will be very different. Norman will not see the angry person enter the hall. The person will not yell. He will not scream. Security will not notice him. He walks quietly. He walks slowly. He reaches the front of the room, and no one takes notice. He is dressed well. He has a nice tie on. It's a little gaudy, but it's nice. He has pressed his shirt and put on a jacket. Maybe the fact that he wears nicer clothing today causes other people to drop their guard, because security does not look at him twice. He walks slowly to the front of the audience. He stands there and he listens. Norman talks about the miracles that come with believing in a higher power. Norman is being very dramatic with his arms. He makes big, open movements to hypnotize his audience. He concentrates on making his gestures perfect and big. He concentrates on putting pauses into his speech. at exactly the right places and emphasizing exactly the right words. Norman concentrates on so many of these details about his own performance that he does not see the man in the suit pull a gun from his belt and aim it steadily towards the stage. He does not hear the man as the man yells, "This is all your fault. I've lost everything because of you." This all happens so quickly that before the sound of the man's voice registers on Norman's radar, the man has pulled the trigger once already, then a second time, and a third. The first bullet is a direct hit. Norman is a bag of sand being hit by a Ford truck. He flies backward, limp and without control. Norman is compelled backward and trips. He swings his arms to break his fall. Norman prays, and in the middle of his fall, he finds himself hoping that God is real and that some higher power can hear his prayer. The man's second and third bullets are fired too late. By the time the bullets cross the stage over Norman's position, Norman has already fallen out of the way. The man pauses and watches Norman bounce off the stage. He must be sure that his target has paid a just price. So the man in the suit walks slowly around the front of the stage. He climbs the stairs. He walks across the stage towards Norman, who lay like a pile of dirty clothing in the middle of the floor. His final steps over Norman's shooter are purposeful. Security is taking position and charging towards the danger through the crowd that moves in the opposite direction. Each moment in time for Norman stretches to fill the span of eternity. The effects of adrenaline take hold. Sounds become dull and elongated. The echoes of footsteps are long and hollow. This is the distortion of time that precedes one's death. Norman watches his shooter stand over him. He watches the shooter raise the gun and point it towards Norman's skull. He watches as the man pulls the trigger one last time. He watches as security tackles the man. The world goes black. Norman closes his eyes. He feels relief in knowing that it is all over. Well, it sounds like Burton and Norman finally met in person. Quite an exciting series of events, perhaps. I feel that it's important to note that this book is not over. We still have one more installment, so please join us again next week as we take a look at the last chapters of The Last Speech.